Hello and welcome back to the Pinnacle Stack. Today we're here in double digits with episode 10. Made it all the way here. We got one more coming after this to wrap up the year. But Hawker, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I hear we've got some weak immune systems in the call right now, but I'm strong. I'm feeling good. Yeah, I'm ready. I definitely wasn't ill last week. Definitely not. I never get ill. I'm the perfect man.
And how about you, Brandon, with your weak immune system?
No, neither. I'm feeling great. I definitely didn't message before this saying, guys, please, I feel awful. My voice is a bit deeper than usual, but I hope that just keeps the viewers engaged. So
It's the sexy Brandon coming out for the final few episodes. All the engagement coming through. But Brandon, you were away at Impact. Probably
yes.
part of the reason that you're feeling so rough is the traveling. But how was Impact, and how did all the teams get on there?
Yeah, it was a really good event actually, and it's wild to me kind of the storylines that we had over the weekend, and we still had the same result in the end. And I'll break it down why. Basically, normally with these events for the last year, it's been Enigma Galaxy, it's been Navi Javelins, always in the final. They win their opening games and they are straight in the semis. They miss all of day 2 of play. They can prepare and then they always meet in the final. Enigma Galaxy always wins. That didn't happen this time. On day 1, it was Fluxo Demons, South America team, beat Enigma Galaxy on Vertigo, and like they owned them. Like they were catching them out with utility. They were being incredibly proactive. Enigma Galaxy couldn't adjust to their defaults, and it meant that Enigma Galaxy had to play on the second day, which means they're fighting for their lives in the best of 3. And it's like, oh, that's really cool. And then Nine Pounders Fearless did the same to Navi Javelins. So now you've got the two teams that are always in the final. They always win their games. Like it's not even close half the time. They're now on the verge of being eliminated. And you think, surely they're going to get knocked out, but they don't. They have these intense games, like the back and forth between HSG and Enigma Galaxy. It was like overtime on both maps, triple overtime on one map, I think, and it was unbelievable. And it showed a lot of resilience from Enigma Galaxy to be able to win that game. If I'm being honest, they should have lost, and full credit to them because they managed to turn it around. And yet again, we meet in the final, Enigma Galaxy Navi Javelins, and it's not really a close map one. You're like, okay, we expect it to be like that. Navi don't really play Inferno. It's Enigma Galaxy's best map. We'll go to Nuke. That used to be Enigma Galaxy's permaban, and they won 13-0 on the second map, which is just unbelievable. And it's an interesting storyline to me because you see how close they came to being eliminated, and then it was almost like a slap in the face for them, and they were just like, okay, let's not muck about now. And they just owned everyone. So they've won 6 times in a row for ESL Impact. Have to see how it pans out for 2024. But yeah, that was the weekend. It was great.
That is a crazy statistic. 6 in a row is, I mean, that's difficult to do in any sport. So yeah, I saw I think it was on Freddie on Grimmy Renard's Twitter where he was posting about the Fluxo fans, and
Yeah.
they look wild. Like they'll turn up all the time, don't they?
Yeah, it was really nice as well because the main person like spearheading like all of the celebrations was one of the players' mum and dad, and then they were kind of getting everyone involved in the crowd, and it was a really cute moment.
That is cute. If only I could have that support. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh my
But
god.
no, that's very. I mean, we saw it with like Cold Zero, didn't we? And players like that who have like their parents come in and stuff. And I mean, it's very cute to see that. And I mean, we're likely to see that a lot going forward, I imagine, because we've got so many young players coming up through the scene. So they probably need that support. Some of them might even need their parents to travel to events with them, considering some of the ages of some of these prodigies that we're starting to see rise up through the scene. So yeah. But Impact, great event for Brandon. Saw you looking very suave in your suit as well. So
That's
that
what I
was
felt
always good
good.
to see.
Yeah. Oh, now I'm in the bin.
The deep voice, the suit. What else could we want from you?
Health.
But we're gonna move on to talk about Blast World Finals, the final S tier event of the year. We got a lot of changes happening in this event. Frozen to FaZe, Brolin standing in for Mouse. We've got Swanee's last event for G2 before Taz comes in, which I don't know about you guys, but a massive shock. We'll talk about G2 shortly. And yeah, just more like stand-ins, new players joining teams. So what I want to do with this is rank the teams 1 to 8, and then we can compare them to Pinnacle's outright odds and see how
Okay.
that we've compared them in the rankings to how Pinnacle value these teams. So I want to kick this off by just going with the bottom team, and I think we might be all in agreement that that's Heroic based on how they are at the minute. They've got Salazar standing in, so I just want to get your takes on him, and if you're in agreement that we should put Heroic at the bottom of the barrel. We'll start with you, Brandon.
Yeah, Salazar is a player that's been around the tier 2 scene for probably like a couple of years now, and he's had his chances on Danish teams. He's been grinding. He was in Ecstatic recently. And I actually really rate him. I think he's got a lot of promise. That the thing he does obviously lack is firstly team experience for not being around in the kind of the tier 2, tier 3, tier 1 space for a while. And just also opportunities to kind of have these events because Ecstatic, I think he played, was it Challenger Katowice? He was there for Ecstatic.
Did he not stand in
Potentially
as well
Hawker.
for Heroic already?
No, that was, oh, did he?
So, there were two players that came in to stand in before the
No,
last
no, that was
event?
Kristen and Syra.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but I really like the guy. I don't expect him to be a world beater on the server, but what I am glad is that Heroic are giving these opportunities, like Syra, like Kristen, just working and playing against top teams and allowing yourself to be playing with experienced players on the server as well. So I think it's great. In terms of expectations, I'm not too sure. I expect him to be pretty decent, but he's not going to be like wonderful.
How about you, Hawker? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on Heroic?
Yeah, I think they have to be the lowest ranked team. I mean, because of the blast system, they qualified from the spring final, so like that lineup is almost non-existent compared to the one we're seeing here now. Just Tessus and Shush hanging on. I think that realistically, Shush just did an interview basically saying we're not afraid to take chances. I think that's how they're going to come into this event. They can probably take some risks. They can maybe win some unexpected rounds because of that. But even though every other team or like a lot of the other teams have made roster moves, they probably just don't have the firepower. I think the main thing that is probably exciting is I would love to see Dupree continuing to play really well because I'll be honest, I kind of wrote this guy off after Vitality. I thought he was showing up for like the biggest events, but I didn't think he was motivated to continue to grind. And it looks like he's actually played really well on Heroic. So that would be really cool to see. But yeah, outside of that, there's not much to get excited about, sadly, with Heroic.
Yeah, and I think the fact that they've got FaZe in their first match is so tough because FaZe are gonna want to prove so much that that they can win and continue winning with a new player in that position, and what a player it is in Frozen who takes that spot there. So yeah, I think Heroic they're gonna struggle a lot, and I'm very curious. I think I'm more curious to see how they're going to approach next year more than they are going to approach this event, just based on the fact that Dupree is on contract till the end of the year. Zyphon is on a loan. And Zyphon's someone I was really impressed with at the full final. And I was impressed with him a lot back in the Rio Major. I believe he was in like the top 5 players for rating in the Challenger stage or one of the earlier stages. And I think he got a bit overlooked. So I'm happy to see that he's doing well. And maybe, as Brandon says, this is the opportunity for them to show themselves and get a chance for a team. So yeah, I think Heroic are looking, unfortunately, like they're going to be the one of the last place teams at this event. But you never know with these kind of events of Blast and what they can bring. Do you guys have any suggestions for the next team in the list? I think based on Pinnacle's odds, they've got Ents. So it would be Heroic and then Ents. Another team that have made changes. How do you guys feel about that? Are you do you want Ents in 7th, or is there another team that kind of immediately shoots out to you as, wow, they've been a bit underwhelming?
I think the next team I would have said was Ents. So only because like I don't. The thing is, we don't know what to expect from them. And when Glaive, you're changing your IGL, who is now IGL in a European team. You changed your coach, and Glaive hasn't worked with another coach, bar like all the Astralis swaps in ages. So it's one of those things where I hate to repeat myself sort of every week on this podcast, but it's like they just need a little bit of time. And the Elisa Full Finals really showed that. That was a wild event. Shout out Furia. Shout out Harvu. Like, what And so I feel like they should have won some of those games. I feel like they're just lacking a little bit of chemistry, and you know what? That's fine because you played one event together. But yeah, when you take a look, it's the World Finals, right? These are the quote unquote best teams that are attending from CS2. So you got to put them seventh.
Yeah, I'm there as well. Actually, I did a podcast with Yumi recently, and he had way more faith in Ents than I did. The problem I have is that I mean, I think everyone is basically always thought of Ents as very much Snappy is the man, and he's kind of made this team what it is with a bunch of players that like maybe can fit well in a system, but don't really seem to be incredible outside of that system. And so you bring Glaive in, and this is the exact team where I say you almost have to give them time. It's not like a scenario where sometimes Carrigan maybe comes straight into a team and he's got some players that can maybe come up with ideas and help out. Like the problem I have is actually this Ents team to me just kind of looks like it's a bunch of players that fit their roles well, but I don't see like Madden or Dihar or even like Nerds. I don't imagine these players coming and helping Glaive with ideas early and saying, oh, maybe I can make this play, or maybe I can help out and help while we don't have proper structure and just come up with some other ideas. I don't know if they have those sorts of players for me. And that's kind of what you need if you want to just try and hit the ground running. I actually think maybe I'm underappreciating Nertz in that aspect because he does make a bunch of plays, but I've always felt like Nertz kind of makes plays like within the system more than anything. Like I feel like it's always part of the plan. So I just don't think they have enough structure, and then I don't think they have the players that are going to just take over games, sadly.
And do you think that's testament to like Snappy as an IGL, or more so the system that he's built within Ents?
Yeah, I think a bit of both. Like, I think Snappy was always just not only like really good at like just having really well drilled rounds. Like he'd have a lot of executes, but he would also adapt really well during games. So I just think whenever I was watching Ents, like so many of their games, I would look at and say it was won by either team play or by Snappy adapting really well. And so yeah, I rate Snappy really highly, and that's kind of why I have to say, listen, I could see Glaive doing well on this team, just not right now.
Yeah, it's like we've got the same 4 players. You change that one player, and I mean the firepower itself isn't really, you've not really lost much in that regard, and we are looking at a completely different Ents. So yeah, definitely another team. Give time and let's see how they do. I did I thought they would perform better at Alisa. I thought they would. Like obviously the whole thing of the honeymoon period and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I did expect a bit more out of them than they did show. I think Havu turned up, so nobody really expected much of that to happen. But yeah, Ents, I'm a big Nerds fan, so I'm hoping that they do well, and I think Nerds can continue to show his good form. Some Pius as well. The one thing I think everyone was surprised about was Madden. He
Yeah.
performed extremely well under Glaive at the first event. Obviously, very small sample size, but he's shown quite well, and he's been a point that I know that some of us have pointed out across podcasts of maybe someone who could be upgraded within that system. So we'll see how they do. So 6th, I think there's a few candidates that fall into like this end of the barrel here, like like the 6th to 4th slots maybe. I want to put 4 names out there actually because I feel like our top 2 is going to be pretty guaranteed. So Navi, Mouse, C9, G2. I think they're pretty fair as the 4 to go into these next few slots. So are there any of those 4 for number 6? Or I mean, I don't think Phase or Vitality fall into the bottom. I think they're top 2.
Yeah. I think the tough thing is I would probably have Mouse as the weakest out of all these teams right now. But I think Group A is so much harder than Group B. Like, just because you have Vitality and Cloud9 in there, and I think those are 2 pretty stable teams right now. Whereas in Group B, G2 are the massive question mark. And I personally actually think G2 will do pretty well here. But like, there have to be questions. I don't care that much about those online results. But like, could I imagine Mouse beating G2 in the opening matchup? It's not impossible. But I do think having Brolan standing in, I just like maybe I'm underrating how much skill this team has, because Jimpat's been doing well, and you know, you've got Exertion, you've got Torju who's been playing pretty well. I don't know, like, you remove Frozen from Mouse, just the feeling you have from that is like, damn, that's the heart of the team gone. Like, I don't know if they quite have enough.
And the G2 results, they were online results, but they were bad results. They were, even when they won, it was like OT, wasn't it? And Brandon,
Yeah.
you cast a lot of the CC2. What did you think of
Yeah,
G2?
I didn't cast any of the G2 games, but I remember coming, like, waking up each morning and I was like, okay, let me watch the G2 game. And I was like, this will be quick. We get to kind of see a little taste for Nexa, and then the game's like 4 hours. It was unbelievable. I didn't expect that, and although I preach for team needs more time, not being funny, look at the stars you got in that team. Look at the ranking, and the fact that you've won Katowice, the fact that you've won Cologne with 4 of these 5 players. You should be winning those games. Like this was a really easy way to perform well and like shut some people up, and all you've done is add more fuel to the fire.
Yeah, we spoke about it on the last podcast of just G2 should win that. They just should, and they haven't. So it's as you say, more fuel to the fire on the Nexa versus JKS debate that kind of sparked, and whether that move was a good idea. So you know, we said that we didn't think that was going to be the only move, and it hasn't. You know, Taz is coming in place of Swanee after the World Finals, so we'll have to see how that goes. It's going to be good to see Taz versus Neo though, when those matches come together. But you said C9, a bit of a stable team, didn't have the best of results at BetBoom. So do you think they'd go on the lower end of this, Walker?
I think just because of where the other teams are, I think Cloud9 are probably a team I have to have like a fair bit of faith in here. I would say the lower end for me is like, I do think I'd put Mouse in 6th, probably just. I just don't see it. I don't know. I guess the question mark is like, how good is Shuhei just going to be just bringing Brolan in? I just don't have faith in Brolan either. That's the other problem. I know maybe it could happen because he looks like a skilled player. He's been a great player in the past, but I've just, for too long, Brolan has not been good. And then I don't know if you quite have the firepower outside of that. So I'd probably put Mal's lower, and then maybe like I'd even put Navi lower than C9, to be honest. Like I just think that Navi don't really have the same individual level as Cloud9, probably. And for whatever reason, I don't think Cloud9's team plays looked incredible, but neither is Navi's. So I don't know, those two kind of similar for me, but Cloud9 have shown me a little more. So Cloud9 weirdly are one of the teams I have a bit of faith in, even though I have a few negative things I could say about them still. I just think we're in a weird spot where I don't have faith in many teams right now.
Brandon, I saw your face go a little bit with Mouse in 6th. So
All right.
Yeah. I'll kind of filter these teams from what we've been saying, right? I actually think Mouse is the next team. So we've gone, what, Heroic, Ents,
yep.
not Mouse, sorry, Navi, and then I'd say Mouse, and then I'd say Cloud9.
So you'd have Navi lower than Mouse?
Yes.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay, wow.
That's quite a statement as well, considering they've only really got 4 players at the minute. And I mean, as an NIP fan, putting faith in Brolan at the minute is it's tough
Well,
to do.
my only argument for it is, well, I've got 2. Firstly, I'm sick. Secondly, so if
The
it backfires,
delusions.
it's not my fault. Secondly, I think about the way that Brolan was playing in Fnatic before obviously Mezzi and Alex joined, and he was playing pretty decently when they first started coming together. And the whole narrative was Brolan wants to go and play on a Swedish team. I don't actually think it was that. I think it was Brolan wanted to play with a better IGL, and then he went to NIP. I think about the amount of IGLs that NIP have gone through, and it's not the fault of the IGLs, but because there isn't that structure compared to how long Fnatic was with Brolan when the structure was set up, when they were winning events, when he was performing exceptionally well. I feel like, sure, if Shui, we have got a lot of stock in Shui to be able to turn teams around, get the best out of players. We've seen it with Torji already. I feel like if the structure is good enough and Brolan believes in the structure, also the fact he stands it in and it's not a long-term thing, I could actually see him doing really well. And I don't know whether that's me just coping, but that's kind of how I look at it.
And do
I
you
think the
think
roles are also quite interesting. because I feel like Yimpat's been really good in roles where he hasn't had to take up much space.
Yeah.
But then the question is like, do you want to put Yimpat in some more of those frozen roles, or do you just put Brolan in and have full faith in Brolan? That's a big question because like the team obviously is going to have some structure with Yimpat playing where he is. So do you just slot in Brolan role for role and say,
yeah, you
this
do.
is your chance?
Yeah, absolutely you do. Because if it also it's one of those things where if it works out pretty decently, you can then go away and you can refine it during the event. And if it's terrible, then hey guys, we're playing with a stand-in, and then you've got that option of maybe transferring Yimfat into some of Frozen's roles. But Yimfat isn't a Frozen. Like
No, yeah, exactly.
he excels based in the roles that he's in, and he's been playing these roles pretty much his entire career. So I don't actually think Shui's going to swap him and put him in those like X Factor roles. I feel like he's more enough of an X Factor just how he is.
Yeah, especially when they found so much success recently playing in these spots. Yeah, I agree with Brandon. I don't think it makes sense for them to then start switching things about, and then they have that opportunity to look elsewhere if if Brolin isn't that fit, if this is just his stand-in, or however they want to approach the situation with it. But the only thing that I'm interested in for Malzo over Navi is just as the Frozen is a very exceptional player, like especially compared to Brolin as of late. So the firepower that you're losing, you still think that's enough to place Mouse above Navi?
I have no faith in Navi. I want to, I really want to, but I don't. So that's why I'm always going to say, well, in this instance, until they prove me wrong, Mouse should be above Navi.
Okay. Can we come to an agreement on that, Hawker? Are you happy to concede this one?
I don't have massive faith in Navi, but I feel like I have more faith in them than Mouse personally. But I mean, it's it's close enough that
we can shake hands on it, Hawker. I don't like it's fine. Like
yeah, I'm not that
are
fussed
we
about
happy
these
for them
teams.
like sixth and fifth then? Like we'll just have them in that like rotating.
We'll do it alphabetically, so Navi can be below Mouse.
But we're happy with them like in the fifth and sixth slot, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, around there, yeah.
I mean, and Mal's yet to play G2 in the first round. As we said, they've not had the greatest of results in the online world at the minute. So maybe that is a good opportunity for them to test Brolin into this system and really try and take advantage of the lack of results that G2 have been having. But now we got to talk about G2 and C9, and I think this it's actually a difficult debate. If you look at it with their results recently, then you'd probably put G2 lower, but you've got Nico and Monazy in that team still. So, Brandon, what's your thoughts on this G2 C9 debate for the third and fourth slot?
I just think G2 are better on LAN at the moment than Cloud9, and you should take the online games with a pinch of salt. And the only reason why I'm saying that as well is, although we expected a lot out of G2, my mind falls right back into when Mouse first put this roster together and they brought in Jimfat and they started playing open qualifiers online, and they looked pretty damn bad. So, I don't know what to expect. I just feel like right now, Cloud9, they've been together for longer, so they're gonna do better. And that's literally where my head is at. Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
Wait,
you've already
no,
said about C9.
hang on. I said no, I'm wrong. I literally just started that point with saying G2 is better on LAN than Cloud9, so they'll do better. And I've ended the point, and that's why Cloud9 would do better than G2. I'm so sorry. My honest answer is G2 is going to do better than Cloud9 based on LAN, based on the fact that Cloud9, yes, they've been together for a long time, but that wasn't the reason. The reason is they're playing like this weird 5-man AWP Counter-Strike. I've been seeing a lot more purchase out of Axile compared to what we have been seeing, is what I will say. But I don't know. I've got them there. I'm gonna stop talking. Please help me, Hawker.
It's this one is really tough because I am going to start by saying I think G2 will do better than Cloud9. I agree. I think the online results are something I barely care about. I also think we're just in a period of Counter-Strike where a lot of teams are in flux. There's not that many teams that have like established rosters and established team play. And when that's the case, I feel like having someone like, Nico, Monacy, these players who can just take over games, I actually think are so valuable right now. And Cloud9, like they have good players across the board, but out of the players who can take over a game, it's like Electronic can definitely do it. Axile sometimes, but we haven't really seen it lately, and that's kind of it. Whereas for G2, like Nico, he can do that all the time. We've seen it. Monacy can definitely do it. I think Hunter helping out with secondary calls, when he's on point, that makes G2 a real threat. So I agree. I think that in general, I expect G2 could actually come in and do really well here. I think Nexa will be like pretty fine as a fragger. He's probably a slight downgrade still, but I think he'll be all right. And that's all we really need from him. Long term, I'm interested in the Taz thing, but that's not for this event.
Yeah.
That's too quick a turnaround for Taz to make an impact.
The thing I'm curious about, and I guess I'll throw it to you as well, Alex, is the fact that with Nexa coming in as well, you mentioned Hunter's secondary call. Is there too many voices in this team? And now you've got Taz coming in as well. Like that's my main concern. Is like, are we kind of adding too many ingredients when we should be kind of sticking to our fundamentals a bit more?
I think the question is because Nexa has been an in-game leader, but the vibe I've had the entire time is that Nexa kind of didn't really want to be an in-game leader massively. He just did it because he was put into that role and people liked him in that role. And I saw an interview he did recently, I think it was with Thorin, where he was basically saying, for now, I'm literally just going to focus on shooting people.
Oh, that's
so
cool. Okay.
I think if he can go back to that, then I think it can work really well, actually. And yeah, I'm interested in Taz long term. The problem is though, dude, Cloud9, if you just look at their full results, they played a really close series against FaZe. The third map went to overtimes on Anubis, and then they played a really close series against Vitality, where the third map was only won by Vitality 13-11. Like if you look on paper, those Cloud9 results, they very nearly beat both the teams that made it to the final. But then I watched them at BetBoom, and I'm like, what is going on? This looks like a completely different team. The team play looks really bad. Like, I'm genuinely watching two players swing top mid on Mirage just right behind each other and just line up and just die. And I'm like, well, okay, that's not a great start. And then I didn't think their AWPers would be this bad. I thought they'd be like, okay. And I don't even think like Boomich can be okay on the AWP. I'm watching him like miss easy shots. He can't even hold angles. I'm watching him hold from CT on Mirage into ramp. He'll land the first shot, and then he'll go for this random wide re-swing, even though he knows everyone's holding him. And I'm like, Boomich, what were you expecting? They're obviously just going to kill you here. You can't swing like that with the AWP. It just doesn't work. I'm seeing him like almost get confused on the map and not be ready for where players can be and rotate in with the AWP when people are already past him. It's like, it's tough, man. I think if they like, because the reason the Liquid lineup worked is that Nitro was like just about okay at holding angles with the AWP at least, and was a pretty cerebral player in game. But someone like Boomich, I've never thought of him as cerebral in game, so it doesn't really work at all. So yeah, the actual core of the lineup for Cloud9 just doesn't work for me, and I struggle to look past that, sadly.
How can't he be cerebral in game when he's the in-game leader?
Well, I don't know, but he's not. So.
He's got to focus on that AWP, man, holding angles and everything.
He's thinking about the big picture, but not for himself.
Yeah.
That must be it.
It takes a different level of IGL to AWP, like and cool at the same time. Like it's so tough, especially if you've not done it. The fact that he's come into this team, there's familiarity with players that he's played with in the past, but you're then picking up that weapon, and you have to focus on a whole other aspect of the game now that you were once before. Allowing another player in your team and giving them positions to then go use that weapon. I think it's such a silly decision for people to do this when you haven't had that experience and you haven't seen success with it previously. But I mean, what else do they do other than remove a player and get a proper AWPer in?
I mean, again, some of the other players are AWPing sometimes, but it doesn't look much better. So
I remember the Hobbit stuff, and some of these players that you see, and I don't know, it just makes you feel a bit sad about it, that like that weapon's being wasted in these roles when you've got someone like Shiro sitting there, and you remember how good he was, and well, I say remember how good he was, like he's never going to come back. Like hopefully he'll come back into some roster at some point, but Yeah, it's such
If
a
Shiro
shame.
comes back into any other roster, it almost makes no sense because it's like, why would you leave Cloud9 at this point? It looked like it was just about to come together, but no, I guess I don't know. Because the rumors are he might go to like, I can't even remember who it was, just some random
I saw
CIS team.
something like like one of the spirit level team. I say
That's
spirit
what I
level
was
teams. They've
thinking.
just
Yeah.
won one of the events, but one of those guys, like one of the.
Oh,
It's so weird to call them like the lower tier CIS teams. But they have just one bet boom, so
imagine if Shiro goes to Paravision to be with Jerry.
Why? I don't want to imagine that.
When did we? There was a podcast previously where we suggested Jerry as an IGL for. Was it for Navi? Or was it
Or
Cloud9? It
Cloud9,
was one of the two, wasn't it? I
Yeah, I
remember
think
that.
it was
Yeah,
Cloud9.
yeah. What could have
I love
been?
Jerry, but I really want to park it because I can't do it right now. But shout out Jerry, he's a real one.
So we're gonna say third place G2, fourth place C9.
I don't know now
Yeah.
because Hawker's kind of talked me out of it, but we initially said yes, so I'm gonna say yes.
My gut tells me that G2 will be good here. I think they'll be better, way better than people expect. I think
I agree.
people need to calm down.
Also, like maybe they get like a buff as well because Swanee's leaving, right? So it's like, okay, we want to go out on a high for Swanee. So
there you go.
I like that narrative, so we'll go with that as well.
So currently, if we're going off Brandon's rankings of the Mouse Navi placement, we're exactly the same as what Pinnacle currently have for their outright odds for this event.
Yeah.
So the final two places, we got Vitality FaZe. I think this is where it gets a bit spicy because Vitality won an event with a new player. Can FaZe do the same thing, Hawker?
Honestly, not for me. Not for me. And this is also partly because bro, Mezzy didn't do shit for Vitality at that event. Mezzy was kind of garbage. I'm not gonna lie, not garbage, but like he just wasn't that good. And yet still Vitality did really well. I actually just think Apex outcooled FaZe so hard in that final. Oh my god, it was ridiculous. And I think it's partly just because FaZe knew they were a dead lineup. So I was just watching FaZe, and it felt like every round or a lot of rounds, they had a sort of rough idea for the start of the round, but then they didn't really know how to follow up on it. I don't think the team play across the entire roster was 100% there. So you'd see FaZe make these opening moves or try these aggressive CT plays, just try and basically cause a bit of chaos early in rounds. And Vitality was so ready for it. Vitality played incredibly. They basically just waited for FaZe to make all these early moves. They would pretty much always win the opening fight. And then from there, Vitality would just group up and just play really, really solid CS. I think Apex is doing a fantastic job with this team. And I just don't think FaZe will be able to get that team play on board quickly enough. I also think that it's not a real clean addition, like role-wise, bringing Frozen in. I think he's very versatile and he can play the roles Twist was playing, but he was kind of playing like a lot of almost like Rops roles, right? Like these passive rifling roles there on Mouse. I've seen him play like more aggressive before. I know he can do it, but I think it might take a bit of time for him to adjust. So even though I know we always talk about Carrigan being really good, like bringing a lineup in straight away, doing the best he can with it, I was actually so impressed by Vitality and just their overall cohesion at that previous event that I have Vitality as pretty solid favorites here. I was so impressed by them in that final.
I mean, there's two things I quickly want to discuss before I pass this to you, Brandon, just based on that. I think the best five from that last event were 4 Vitality players and then a Liege on the HLTV list, which is, when you can dominate an event that hard with 4 players performing, I think it must have been Mezzy that wasn't in it. That's impressive. And now my mind's gone blank. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say, I think many people are looking at this roster as Carrigan, Rops, Frozen. They played together. They're going to have this chemistry that they've built up. So they should just come into this event fine. There's going to be no change. There's going to nothing will change in how they're going to perform. It's just going to work. And I think, as you say, Hawker, it's probably not going to be the case. Like, they have the easier group, and they have. I want to double check this, but I think they have Heroic in the first game.
They have Heroic first, yeah.
So, like, it should be easier for them to kind of get to it, but we'll see what happens. Brandon, thoughts on FaZe?
I pretty much agree with what Hawker was saying. I feel like if we're trying to match up the odds to the website for Pinnacle, I would say that FaZe are second, Vitality are first. Just to be honest, like it's really just a case of I'm excited to see how Frozen will do, but I feel like Vitality is just on another level right now. And as soon as Mezzi, as Hawker was saying, just kind of gets a little bit more involved, he gains a little bit more confidence because I feel like there were so many elements, especially in the mid round, where it was a bit uncharacteristic from Mezzi. It felt like sometimes he was playing not to die rather than playing his fundamental game and what we're used to seeing. And I saw that quite a lot. It felt quite timid. And obviously, you've now joined the best team in the world, so it kind of makes a lot of sense. So I hope he finds the sense of who he is, and then from there, Vitality are terrifying,
I mean, you're
even more so.
replacing Magisk, aren't you? And you're coming into the best team that ended CS:GO, and now they're trying to find their place in CS2. I think it's only right that the guy doesn't want to make any mistakes in that
Yeah, of
team. Like,
course.
yeah, you'd come in there, you'd probably be frightened to do anything wrong because there's so much riding on you coming into that roster. But okay, Vitality first, FaZe second, which means Brandon's rankings are exactly what Pinnacle has as the values for, right? So if you ever need a job on the trading team, Brandon, we got a place for you.
Not right now.
But yeah, so they're the outright odds. You can check those out on the Pinnacle Esports Hub. I think we're going to move pretty swiftly on because Brandon's not feeling so well, so we're going to try and get through this. I want to actually almost speed through this next section anyway because I had a way that I would like to approach it. I don't know if you're going to like this, Brandon, because it involves a disband.
Okay.
But this is completely like hypothetical.
We're
and
disbanded a team.
So I'm sure you're familiar with the like kiss, marry, avoid scenarios.
Yeah, I play it all the time.
Yeah, you must do. Yeah. But I want to try something with
Sorry.
like invite, qualify, disband.
Oh no. Okay.
So we're going to start with some of the teams from Blast, and then we'll do 2 sets of 3 from the ESL Challenger Atlanta, which is the next event we'll be discussing. But just to kind of ease us into it, so you can both discuss this, or I can feed to one of you. I've got 3 of these written down, so maybe I'll do 2 for Hawker and 1 for you, Brandon.
Yeah, go one by one, and I'll just that's fine.
So Hawker, you got invite one to qualify for your event, and then 1 you got to disband. So
okay. Wait, so am I just giving my invite, or am I doing all 3?
So you're doing all 3.
I think it's you're hosting an event.
Yeah.
You're the TO. You need to pick one of these 3 teams that gets directly invited, one of these teams that will qualify for an open or closed qualifier, and one in which you have no faith in that you think they should disband.
So
okay,
we're going to go with 3 teams from Blast. This was quite difficult to actually pick out teams because I wanted to try and make it as much of a discussion as possible. So we've got Mouse, Ents, and Navi.
Oh, okay. Oh man. Okay, let's. Okay, it's okay. So Miles have a standard, so it's a bit weird, but I think it's actually kind of tough because I'm also thinking about like if I disband a team, I'm almost thinking like which team has the best players that could actually like make other teams good, which I don't know if I should be thinking about, but that's kind of on the back of my mind.
Thinking from a GM's perspective, who could you steal from these?
Low
these
key.
pieces?
I feel like I would still just invite Navi just because they're just a massive org, mate. And also, I still think this roster can do something. I know people are down on them, but I have faith in Alexi. I actually think Wonderful did pretty well in his debut. You know, just need
he did.
a bit more out of the riflers. I'll invite them. I think Maus are gonna have to qualify, I guess, because like I know they've got Brolan right now, but I like the core of this lineup. I love me some Shue. And then Ents, sadly, are going to have to disband, even though I actually think they could do pretty well long term. Sorry, Ents. For some reason, I just care the least about you.
Yeah, for me, GM
it's because I'm just upset about Snappy, man. And Saw. Why did Saw have to go? Huh?
Yeah, to become an assistant from the seams of it as well, which is just even sadder. But if from your perspective as like a GM, players from Ents like Sunfire and Dirts, great players to pick up. So, Brandon, are you on board with that?
Yeah, I was caught between inviting Navi and Mouse, but the way that you phrased it, Hawker, is actually correct. It's just like it's a bigger org. So like from my TO standpoint, if I want to get the viewers, I feel like Navi would bring more of a pull compared to Mouse. So
If you wanted to go nuclear for the scene, you disband Navi, and then who knows what's going to happen.
true, but I wouldn't. I'd disband Ents and I'd give Nerds to Mouse.
Oh wow.
I feel like
There
if
you
you
go.
disbanded Navi as well at this point, how many of those players actually like get
Actually,
immediately
yeah.
picked up? Like that's
Yeah, I
the
actually
other
don't
thing,
think that many.
because they were so like they were spoken about so much after the major and things like that, and now Simple's not in the lineup. It's like, yeah, where do they
Well,
go?
if you disband them, can you put Simple back in the Navi lineup?
Just
We're not doing
Simple.
that.
Just-
No, we're
just
not. We're
Simple.
not. We're not the GMs of the teams. We're GMs of our pretend TO.
Okay, so we'll go with some ESL Atlanta, Challenger Atlanta, which Hawk will be attending. So, Brandon, for this one,
All right. Yeah.
I've got Complexity, Monty, and VP.
Oof.
Oh, no way. You've just done that to me.
You can have the easier one if you want, and we can send this one to Hawker.
What's the easier one?
Apex Game Legion Mongols.
Yeah, you can have that one, Hawker.
Wait, which
you
one
can
am
ha-
I having?
You're having this Complexity Monte one.
Okay.
You
I'll
can
let you
think
do
about
yours.
it. Yeah.
I'll let you do yours first. I'll let you do the Apex Game Legion Mongols.
So I want to clarify this with you before I go in. Is Gamer Legion the way I'm ranking them with Volt or with Andu?
Go with Volt as the set 5. I know they're not playing with their
Okay.
with their full roster.
So I know which one Hawker would disband. I would invite the Mongols
Ooh,
Love it.
because I think they deserve more opportunities against European teams. So I would give them an invite. I would open qualify, close qualify Gamer Legion. I would disband Apex.
interesting.
Okay.
Well, can you agree with that?
No, I'd probably disband Gamer Legion.
Yeah,
Not
no,
gonna lie
I
at
thought
this
so.
point.
Yeah.
Bro, that I just like I don't know, man. They just keep not getting results and they're so inconsistent. I don't know. I don't know where that team's going, man. I don't know.
It's a tough one because Mongols are like the leading team in Asia right now. I mean, there's up for debate, obviously, but they've just won their spot in Pro League Season 19 by beating Tailu and Envision, which are probably the next two competitors there for that region, and they're the leading team in Mongolia. So it's tough to like disband them because regionally they're a great team, and yeah, you don't really want to disband them for that reason. I feel like, and
You
they
know,
don't
we
really
need more
deserve
regional
it.
teams as well. I can't do that because then I'm making the event more like European centric,
Yeah.
and we don't do that here.
I feel like both Apex and Game Legion could fall into either of the final two categories as well. They've not been great up until Elisa for Apex. So yeah. But
Yeah, and just to clarify for some guys online before you write these YouTube comments, we don't want them to disband. All right, it's part of the game. We're not saying
Speak for yourself,
disband.
Brandon.
this is why I wanted to do this so badly with you, Brandon, because I know how much you hate the idea of like just teams disbanding and not giving them enough time. We've had your rants on here across, the 10 episodes.
I would say Apex though, just because I don't know. I haven't seen enough of them since the major. I feel like when you take a look at teams that have actually done the best out of the major, obviously it's Monte first. I'd actually then put Gamer Legion second, just off their whole tenure, and then Apex, then ITB. Poor ITB.
Indeed.
Just keep getting players sniped from them. Okay, Hooker, you've had some time. Complexity,
Yeah.
Monty, VP.
I feel like it's not easy. Right. I think I'm almost certainly gonna put complexity in qualify just because I know they'll win the NA qualifier, so that's all right. That'll go well. Although now there's liquid, actually, maybe they won't win it. Oh no.
Ooh.
But no, I'll put complexity in qualify. Oh wait, hang on, will I though? Hang on, I don't think I will. I think complexity might have to disband, which
Wow,
is kind of wild.
It's great news
But
for
like,
FaZe.
I don't know, man. I feel like this roster's peaked, and I don't see them going anywhere like higher than they are. and I'm kind of like
We'll get that clip
low-key a bit
ready
like
if
I
they
want to
win
see.
Atlanta.
Yeah, it's a bit harsh.
I really can you, if you're casting the finals as well, Hawker, we need you saying that they won so we can have the perfect full circle.
Yeah.
Like,
I just like that there is part of me that's a bit like Elige is just going to be really good on this roster, and I know they're not going to compete for trophies, and that makes me sad because I think now that every other team has made roster moves, they're just slowly going to like go down. This is really hard though, to be fair, I will
So
say.
you think that Complexity have very much so just taken advantage of the current like roster?
Yeah,
mania
kind
stage?
of. Like I think they've peaked. And then like it would be between them and Monty for disband, but I really liked how well Monty played recently at Jongjaping. Like they're actually going through growth right now. I really like Bro. I feel like he was so good in the final. So like I guess I'll invite Monty and then just let VP qualify. But those two are just really close, to be honest. I think they're on similar paths right now.
Brandon, seemed like you had disagreements. So where would you place
no,
these guys?
no, 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 no,
You
no,
think
no.
that's fine?
It's not easy.
No, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
I only disagree when he said I might have to disband Monte, and I was like, they're literally playing the best CS that they've been playing.
Yeah.
The only criticism for Monte is that they kind of like tier 2 heroic, where they go deep in events and can't win tournaments. Well, they just won their tournament.
It's true.
I think they're fine.
I think as well with Complexity, it goes back to that, what we're saying about like the Navi and Ensign Mouse. Like, where do their players go? And should I don't know where many of those players would end up if that was the case, unfortunately, for the NA scene at the minute. So
it's true.
But they get a chance to compete on home soil, which I'm quite excited about to see them play there, and maybe they can take over then.
Can I just say, I'm actually so upset for Gamer Legion and Volt and their issues that he can't attend this LAN, because he's been the best player on this team. And obviously the winner for this team, I don't know how it works with ESL, but the winner of this team qualifies for Pro League. So does it just get handed down to like second place, third place, fourth place? If it does, hypothetically, there's like 5 or 6 teams that have already qualified in this event to Pro League. M80, Mongols, Monte, Complexity. 5 out of your 8 teams have already qualified to Pro League. So if they had Volt and they did well, maybe they get a Pro League spot.
This is karma for getting rid of the UK flag, man. That's what it is.
Turned Romanian and it's all gone downhill for him. So yeah, I'm not sure how that works. It's actually a really good point, Brandon, because if you come in the semi-finals, you end third, fourth. So if the top 4 teams, like if the both semi-finalists that don't make it to the final haven't got Pro League spots, like who do you give it to?
It's a great question.
So
I feel like I'm kind of just talking out my arse here. But I feel like there was a previous Challenger event where the team that came second got the spot.
That's what I think as well. I remember that.
Yeah, but then you're right in that, like, if it's just 2 teams that finish third to fourth, I don't know how you distinguish that.
We don't have like a third place match
we might have to have one.
Yeah,
we'll find out. I'll have to ask when I get to the event.
If you're at the event, Hawk, if you can get this information for, I mean,
I'll
we'll know by the time you're back for the podcast, but it's interesting anyway for like future events where this may be the case. So
for sure,
yeah, definitely interesting. But yeah, those are some of the teams that we mentioned. There's 6 of the teams that are attending. There's only 2 more. We're going to talk a little bit now about M80. Bestia are also there, but as Hawker's going to cast the event. If you could just tell us a bit about M80, and then I'm just going to get your guys' prediction for who's going to win the event. So, Hawker, if you could take it away with M80.
Yeah, I mean, M80, I do feel a bit bad for them because their group here is kind of rough. They have Monty and VP in their group. So, like, getting out of that group is going to be hard. Just because the 2 top teams are like some of the real top teams at the event. But they've been unbelievably good in NA. Like, they've been on some mad win streak. They've basically not been losing. They've actually like barely been dropping maps even against a lot of the NA teams. And I think this roster has been put together really, really cleverly. Like, for a long time, they had a couple of NA players who just weren't really good enough. I think they had Wolfie as well, actually. And it just felt like these players weren't quite good enough to compete internationally. I remember they'd come to Pro League and it would always be like Swisher would play really well and maybe one other player would play well. And then the rest of the roster, you just have some players that clearly just weren't good enough to compete. And they've slowly actually turned this into a roster where it's really hard to find a real weak link now. I think this is a great level for Slacks, to be honest. He was always like pretty decent in Europe, but especially in NA, AWPers just seem to farm in a lot of the online games. If you're a decent AWPer, you can just do really well. And I think Slacks is probably getting a lot of confidence back because he's been great on this team. I still think at some point Swisher is going to get a chance on a top NA org. He's really good. He's just so consistent, very solid rifler, very smart in game as well when you watch him. And then bringing someone like Manx, I think was a real smart decision because you have a real good structure to this team now. He's actually brought like the Danish CS that he was playing with. I think it was over on Ecstatic, right? And they actually just look really well structured, which I think a lot of these NA teams have never really had when they come to the international lands in the past. Like the NA teams at this level, you'd either have an in-game leader who was like a really, really bad fragger but could give them structure, or you just have a really loose team. And Manx is actually a good fragger for an in-game leader, a pretty good fragger, and he's giving a lot of good structure to this team. You can see they always have something idea, and I can always understand what they're trying to do. So I actually think this M80 squad is in a really good spot right now. And I know there's been like a couple of rosters announced recently in NA, like people are talking about NRG. I actually hope people don't sleep on how good M80 have been, because I know there's hype going to some of these other teams right now. But M80 have been slowly putting together this lineup. And I would love for them to get some sort of result here, just like some sort of upset. And if they could make it out the group, that would be incredible. But I actually think there's an actual chance they can do it. They've been really, really good lately. So I really like where this team is at. I think they deserve a lot of props for the way they've stuck with this team and just slowly made improvements. I think they've done it in a really smart way.
I think the one thing as well with this group is there's only 4 spots from coming out of the groups, and these groups, yeah, they're not particularly favored for some of the underdog teams. You've got Monty and VP. The one thing is, I will say, is the best of one for in the first match. So VP, M80, VP, not exactly the kind of team that you look to overturn in any of these situations, but who knows? It could happen in a best of one. Individuals have a lot of the grasp in a best of one. They can take control of that, which I think is possibly why in Group A you could look towards Game of Legion and Apex. Snacks has been the best performing player on Game of Legion, which has been a bit odd, but he could take control of it. Did it in Dallas when he stood in for ENTS. I think it was Dallas at least, like last year. So yeah. Or maybe it was Game of Legion. I can't remember. He stood in for a team that went to one of these events. If it was Game of Legion as well, they're being cursed with these NA visa issues.
Yeah. Tough.
But yeah, best year are also going to be there. But I think most people are looking at them at the bottom of that group.
Yeah, I feel like it's just hard to know where they're at because they're just playing in South America and like not even always against the best South American teams all the time. Like recently they haven't played too much, so kind of harder to know where they're at. But we'll see. Maybe they could do something.
So based on everything now we know about ESL Atlanta, how the groups work, how it ends up for qualification to the playoffs, Brandon, we'll start off with you. Who is your favorite to win this event?
VP.
Ooh.
Okay. I thought you were going to go Monty,
It's close between those two, but I think back to VP and kind of the journey they've been on. Again, attended the last couple of events and have not won. And not placed as well as they want to, especially in Bet Boom Dasher. And I actually thought they were playing really well. I just think Spirit are on another level right now. So, yeah, I feel like it. I feel like it's VP. They always win one of these events, so I'm gonna go with VP.
If you'd gone Monty, we had to make sure that we actually clip this one because you said they'd make the final of one of the previous events, and someone left a comment, didn't they?
They'd win. I think I said
They
they'd win.
Yeah. And we can't find the clip anywhere. We have
I
looked.
know.
It's so weird.
Someone on the podcast was like, "Damn, this comment from Brandon really aged like fine wine. Credit where it's due." And I'm like, "Where the
we
fuck
both
did I
looked for
say
it.
that?"
I control F the transcript and everything. I cannot find it, and I remember him saying it as well. It's so odd. So yeah, it's out there somewhere. Brandon had that Monty pick, so I thought you might have gone for it again. But VP definitely a solid pick. Walker, how about you?
I mean, I
Gamer
don't.
Legion.
That- with the standard, it would be quite funny if that happened. I don't know why. Like, I'm not like the VP pick. I feel like actually makes a lot of sense now that Brandon says it. I don't know why. It's just like it does feel like they improved since they lost against Monty at the previous challenger.
Yeah.
Monty did look very clutch at that previous challenger, but I almost don't know if they'll be like as motivated here. There's part of me that weirdly, I don't know why. I just feel like even though Complexity did kind of do terribly at Elisa, it's part of me that just feels like they come into this somehow just rejuvenated and just come out and win. Also, because low key, I feel like it would be nice for Complexity to win this event because I think they're probably about to head into a tough time where a lot of the other teams are going to get better, and I don't think they'll be able to do as well. So, yeah, why not? I think Complexity, especially when CS2 first came out, they were real innovative. I think they should hopefully be motivated here, home soil and all that. No, well, they might still have jet lag actually because they flew back, but they should have had enough time back in NA, you know. So why not? Why not a bit of Complexity, completely turning it around? Let's go. They've also got a very easy group, so that'll
After
help.
disbanding them, he now thinks they're gonna win.
This is
True.
their one last win before I disband them.
Before
You
they
know,
go
let them
on.
end on a high.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we'll have that as well. They're not. Just going back. Did you not already say that they weren't gonna win though?
No, I would never say that.
All right, we need to go through this change of emotions from you about Complexity.
Well, I mean, I did it with G2 Cloud9, right?
Yeah.
So like he can have this one. Okay.
It's been a very like bipolar podcast here with how we're viewing these these different teams. It's been all over the place, back and forth. Okay, so yeah, you've got Complexity, you've got VP. The one question I do have: do you think that Game Legion are going to be weakened enough by not having Vault that maybe Mongols even manage to take a game over them, and that Mongols don't end up in last place in this group?
I've been impressed whenever I've seen the Mongols. Gamer Legion have just lost their best player and are now playing with a stand-in who has had no experience kind of at this level. So, um, do you know what? I'm not on the fence. Mongols are going to beat Gamer Legion.
I agree. I actually agree. I think I'd have Mongols favored. I actually think Mongols could definitely make it
Yeah,
through
the group,
over
right?
Apex.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like they actually play solid CS, which a lot of the other Asian teams don't do. But they actually play like smart Counter Strike. So yeah, I could see them making it through to playoffs. Why not?
I'm glad for your affirmation on this, because I've been writing my article on the event, and I've actually staged Mongols fairly highly based on what has actually happened in this. Another question I have before we do wrap this up, because I know Brandon's still feeling rough. In terms of scrimming at this stage of the year, and I'm not sure how far in advance teams will go off to wherever the event's being played. It doesn't seem that like too far in advance. It's usually a couple days. But do you think there's many teams left for these teams to be scrimming as well to get like the relative experience? Or do you think that maybe because all of the top teams are over in Dubai and some of them have been there for Bet Boom, that some of the teams attending this event might be scrimming against some of the lower level teams that are attending? I don't know if I'm phrasing this poorly. I don't know if you even understand what I'm trying to say, but
I understand what you're saying. You're basically saying because teams are traveling to events and they are now all over the world, your prac groups have kind of been fragmented and you don't really have the same practice opportunities.
Especially the player break coming up as well.
For me, it's one of those things where it's like, sure, but at the same time, you would have played enough CS before the event. I don't think having an extra scrim or two before you leave is going to benefit you. And also, if you want prac that badly, you can also prac in NA. I know it's not great, but I don't think it will be a massive factor because everyone's going to be in the same boat as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can maybe scrim some of the teams that are here, maybe like an NRG or someone, who knows, or I don't know, Bad News Bears or whoever. But like realistically, you probably, if you're prepping for an event perfectly, you want to have done all of your scrimming in the weeks leading up to the event,
Agreed,
and then while you're there, you maybe do like one or two while you're there to like just keep things moving, and in case you need to try and change something between games. But for the most part, once you're at the event, you're probably not scrimming as much. So hopefully it should be okay for these teams as long as they've had the prep time, which I think they all should have. So they should be all right.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to last year because I remember Basketball Finals was like the end event of the year from memory, and because of where it's located in Saudi Arabia or one of the countries in the Middle East, that like it was particularly difficult for these teams to get top tier scrims, and you see it in games like League of Legends when splits end and things like that. But that's a whole other conversation, a whole other game that has many issues with practice and teams dropping out. So yeah, so okay, we got VP on Brandon and Complexity for Hawker. So these are the teams that they think they're going to win. There are a few other teams that have happened, as you mentioned, NRG, Team Liquid, but we'll talk about them when they actually have events coming up, because I feel like if we talk about them now, we're just going to reiterate the same points when we get to that. And they're not going to play for a while. We've spoken about them in speculation across other episodes. You can go check those back out. But yeah, this is the second to last episode for the year. So I think what we're going to do on the next one is kind of like our own awards, try and figure out a top 20. There's not going to be too much to talk about besides who won World Finals, who won Atlanta. Probably going to keep that quite brief. But if you guys have any different categories or things that you'd like to see us talk about and give our virtual awards out to people, then please leave a comment and we will discuss probably anything that you want to suggest, as wacky and wild as it is. We like a bit of spice. So whatever you want to suggest, we will take a look at it for sure. Whether we discuss it, we'll see. But yeah, we'll definitely take a look. And yeah, we'd like some suggestions for that. But I think top 20 is definitely on the list. So something for you two to start thinking about ahead. Something for your traveling, Hawker. You can take a look on your playing journeys and start doing all the maths on
No
who you're
donk.
going to have.
No donk allowed. That's what I say.
Oh, yeah, have
Literally
to see.
youngest MVP ever. Number one, not even close.
Was he not second?
I think
No,
he was
no,
second
he
youngest.
was- no,
I
he wasn't
saw it. I
second. He
saw a
won the
tweet
event.
saying second youngest.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, no, he probably was.
I can't remember who was
Oh well,
youngest.
Do you
doesn't
know?
matter.
I thought we were going to go a whole episode without mentioning him, but
Well, you brought it
yeah,
up. Like, I didn't, to be fair.
Hawker mentioned him. You've infected Hawker with the donk.
Well, I hope I've only infected Hawker with Dunk and the weather this week, so I think he won't mind.
We'll see if he slides into your top 20, Brandon. But yeah, this has been the Pinnacle Stack. Are there any closing thoughts from you guys? I mean, Hawker, you're away at Challenger Atlanta. So anything you want to say
Yeah,
there?
I'm excited for Challenger Atlanta, actually. Low key, I feel like a lot of these teams are like in a better place than some of the teams at the Blast World Final. So like the actual quality of CS in terms of team play might be better. I'm also just waiting for next season to start low key. I feel like we've just been having these
Yeah.
roster moves, like the next season, everyone getting into the mood for the major. I think that's going to be a lot of fun because just seeing a glimpse of Vitality play really good CS, which I don't think we've had in a while, got me excited. So I can't wait for the next season.
Yeah, bring on the RMRs, bring on the
Hell yeah.
major. I'm very excited for all of that. And the Blast event at the start of the year, I'm even excited for that because some of these teams that don't necessarily qualify and get invited that are on the weaker end at this point. I mean, OG, we have no idea what's really going to happen with those guys and what's going to happen there. So yeah, lots of different teams that we get to see in the new season. But again, we'll discuss that on the next one. So yeah, we'll close this out. Thank you guys for watching. Check out these guys in the description. Check out the odds over at Pinnacle. As you see, we ranked the teams at the Blast World Finals this time. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.